All right, guys. I said I would do one of the problems from the review sheet today. I'm going to do C. You guys can check it to make sure that you did it correctly. Each of the steps wrapped up inside of this problem are the things you need to know for the quiz tomorrow. You don't need to be able to do this whole problem from start to finish, but you do need to understand each of these steps and be able to recreate them individually. So let's zoom in here. We'll do letter C. The first thing that I'm going to do is draw my coordinate plane. It's an invisible coordinate plane because we don't really have one here. We're just going to use it to help us solve this problem. The issue is that 225 is larger than 90 degrees, and we don't have a special right triangle for 225 degrees, so we're going to have to see what its reference angle is so that we can use that. All right, 225 degrees, so we would be at 0, and then to here would be 90, 180. This would be 270, that's too far. So 225 would be like this. And remember that when we draw this line, we're going to draw it as if it's the radius of our unit circle. And our unit circle, which would go around like this, has a radius of 1. So now we know that this is a line with a length of 1. What we just did is drew this angle here, which is 225. So now we're going to build a special right triangle like we've done in the past, back to the x-axis. And that 225 degree angle tells us a lot about this triangle. We know that it has a radius of 1, but what we don't really know is what these angles are inside of this triangle. So what we're going to do is identify this angle here, which also is just a reference angle for 225 degrees. If we've gone past 180 degrees, what I want to know now is how much further did we go to get to 225? So I guess the question we're really asking here is, what is 225 minus 180? And the answer is 45 degrees. So that's a 45 degree angle. And if that's 45 degrees, then so is this. So we've got ourselves a 45, 45, 90 triangle. The next thing I'm going to do, just to help us, and you guys will eventually get to a point where you don't need to do this, is draw a full-sized 45, 45, 90 triangle with all of the lengths that we normally work with. Normally, our legs are both 1 and our hypotenuse is radical 2. But in this case, that hypotenuse has shrunk and now it's a 1. So this is where we have to go through that process of identifying the ratio of leg to hypotenuse and writing it. So we've got, normally, we use a leg of 1, a leg of 1, and a leg of radical 2. But that hypotenuse just shifted and became a 1. So what we have to find out is what are the lengths of the other two legs now that the hypotenuse has shifted. To get from radical 2 to 1, you have to divide by radical 2. So if I divide 1 by radical 2 and 1 by radical 2, I'll end up with 1 divided by radical 2. But I can't leave it like that. I have to multiply by radical 2 over radical 2 because you can't have a radical in the denominator. So we're going to end up with radical 2 divided by 2. Oops, that should be radical. So each of these become a radical 2 over 2. We can go back and label this now. We know the lengths. And now that we finally have a triangle we can work with, we can evaluate cosine. But not of 225 degrees. We're going to evaluate cosine of 45 degrees. So cosine of 45 degrees, if we write our SOHCAHTOA, we know that cosine is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So in this triangle, here's our 45 degree angle. The adjacent side is radical 2 over 2. The hypotenuse is 1, so we can write in the information we know. Adjacent side is radical 2 over 2. Hypotenuse is 1, which simplifies to radical 2 over 2. We're not done yet, though, because we are in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, we know that cosine is, let's go back and label, add sugar to coffee. So in quadrant 3, tangent and cotangent, its reciprocal, are positive, which would mean that cosine is negative. So our answer is not radical 2 over 2, but negative radical 2 over 2. All right, hope this helps. Again, you won't see a problem like this, but you will see problems that look like this, where you need to find cosine of 45. Or like this, where you have to take a special right triangle and shrink it or enlarge it and see what happens to the other two sides, right? All of this is wrapped up in tomorrow's quiz. So I think you guys are going to be okay for it, but I think if you can do all 6 of these on your own, then you can ensure that you've got all the skills necessary. Good luck, get a good night's sleep, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.